Sanjay. We can see you now, and welcome to TEDMED. We've got about 500 interested people here to want to know how things are going out there in Haiti. We're fixing the camera issues, but we can see you now. And can you give us an update and let us know what's going on?
Thanks a lot, Mark, for having me. Yeah, we are getting settled here in Haiti. Let me just say I'm hearing a little bit of my own voice back in my ear. I really wish that I could be there, for sure. I just got so much out of being there last year, so inspiring, and I really wish I could be spending time there. I don't think I could find a place that's probably as different from where you are at the Coronado Hotel versus where I am here in Haiti. But I also feel like this is exactly where I should be. I really feel it's important to be here for all the reasons you mentioned. Just a couple of housekeeping things I wanted to tell you. I don't know if you have a window open where you are. There's a satellite truck outside your window, and I just wanted to show you what we're dealing with over here in Port-au-Prince. This is sort of our version of a satellite. We have another one just like this sitting up on the roof of this building, and this is literally beaming a signal up at a satellite in the sky and then through a series of signals being transmitted around the world, coming to you and popping up on your screen there. So that's a little bit of how we get things done here. It doesn't always work perfectly. We're running this all off a laptop computer, and sometimes keeping our fingers crossed that we can actually get up on the air. What I've seen here in Haiti, it's kind of hard to describe. I was thinking, Mark, about the talk that I was planning on giving all of you, and what I was planning on talking about. I kind of feel a little bit grubby too, by the way. I don't know how you all are dressed. I kind of feel like maybe I should be wearing a tie or a scarf, perhaps, given that Richard's there. But I really feel like it's been a really amazing experience. I was going to talk about motivation specifically when I was going to come give the talk there at TEDMED. And I've been interested in motivation, the whole concept of motivation, since I was a medical student. What motivates people to do things? Once you got your basic necessities sort of met, what motivates you to do things beyond that? What motivates all of you in the audience to be at a conference like this? What is it that you hope to get out of it? Is it going to make your life better in some way? What is motivation all about? Can it be enhanced? Can it be changed? Can it be learned in some way? That's what I was really going to talk about. But ironically, I find myself talking about being motivated for the most basic necessities. So it comes back full circle, because that is what's happening here in Haiti. And it's been happening for a long time, no doubt. Over the last several years, I've traveled to every continent on the planet now. I've traveled to more than 80 countries and twice as many cities, and I've seen some remarkable things as a reporter that have taught me a lot about the issues that I was interested in as a neuroscientist with regard to motivation. And some of those stories are just incredibly heartwarming stories. I mean, they inspire me, and they make me want to come here, even though it means leaving my wife and my 3 daughters, and who worry about me being in places like this or in war zones. But I'm inspired by the people that I met. I was in Sri Lanka once. I just want to tell you real quick, and I'll tell you about Haiti. But I was in Sri Lanka once not that long ago, and we were setting up a live shot, kind of like this, with the satellites and cameraman. Neil's our cameraman here. Danielle's my producer. She's sitting over here. We were all there. It's a big production to set up a live shot in the middle of a disaster zone. And I remember that I was doing this. There was this house that had been sort of swept away by the tsunami wave, and it really wasn't a house hardly at all standing anymore, but there was this family living in this structure. And I remember in the middle of getting set up, I was thinking about how I was best going to convey to the television audience what I was seeing. And I looked over at that house, and there was this family sitting inside, and they all stood up. And a mom and a dad and a young child. And I remember the mom sort of straightened out the boy's hair. They were literally living underneath rags. Everything they owned swept away in this small Sri Lankan village. And she was taking the time to straighten out his hair. And I remember it kind of broke my heart a little bit that she would even do that somehow she worried, even at the time, what we would think of her and her son and their family. And a little while later, I remember we finished our live shot. The boy came running over and in his bare feet amongst all this rubble, and he handed me a package of crackers. And I looked over at the mom, and she gave me that universal sign of, you should eat, you must be hungry. yet they're giving me what little they have. And I walk the streets of big cities every day in the United States where people have everything and they don't give you the time of day. And it's things like that that inspire me. When I heard about what happened in Haiti back in January of this year, my heart literally sank right away because I'd been to Haiti before a few times, and I sort of thought to myself, an earthquake of that magnitude, this is probably could be the worst city on the planet for this to have happened. Densely populated, hardly any reserves, concrete structures that never had any building codes, a medical infrastructure that really did not exist. It was probably the worst thing that I could have imagined. And as I started to get a couple of the news reports coming out, my fears were starting to get reinforced. We were on a plane within 12 hours, and we were one of the last planes, as it turns out, to land at the Port-au-Prince airport. It was an interesting story. We took off out of Miami sort of on a small plane, and I know nothing about planes, and I know nothing about runways, but the pilot had decided he was going to fly into Santo Domingo, and then we were going to cross over the border into Haiti in a convoy, which takes a long time, and it's very unpredictable. So we somehow convinced the pilot that he should do a flyover over Port-au-Prince. And then when he was flying over the airport and the runway, I remember looking down at the runway saying, that doesn't look so bad. Maybe you could try landing there. And literally the pilot landed, and we were the last plane to land. And we got off the plane, and I remember seeing President Proval there, who looked completely discombobulated and confused. And I remember thinking, he's the leader of this country. And he is completely without direction right now. He's missionless. And it was a frightening thing to think about the leader of a country in the aftermath of a disaster like this, acting in the way that he was. We started driving into the city of Port-au-Prince, and if any of you have been to Haiti, I know some of you in the audience have been here. I don't know if Marc, but when you fly over, there's parts of it that are quite beautiful. There are these beaches, there's lush areas, and when we started driving into town, I remember the first time someone said to me, oh my gosh, look over there, those are all bodies. And it took my eyes a few seconds to adjust even to what I was seeing, but in fact there were bodies literally piled one on top of the other. And what I came to see was that there were parents who were literally taking their children out of these structures, their children who had died, and placing them in front of their homes. They had no place to put the bodies. And there were children who were doing the same thing for their parents. It was an unbelievably awful sight, and of course, like I think any human being, it touches you deeply, but it also makes you think about your own family and how lucky we are in some ways to not have been in a situation like this. I did get to hear all of what Jay Walker was talking about with regard to the plague, but one of the things that I think you mentioned was this idea of counting bodies or somehow trying to identify bodies. They did a really no attempt at trying to identify or somehow mark bodies. And they would literally take the bodies, put them in these dump trucks, and those dump trucks were headed for these big mass graves outside the city. And I remember one of the most difficult things to see was these children would go running after these dump trucks sometimes. They'd scurry up the top of them, and they'd look down into these dump trucks. They were trying to see if their parents or their loved one was in those dump trucks. Because if they could find them, that would be the last time they could see them, because their bodies were not identified. There was no marking. There was nothing. It was as if these people just vanished off the face of the earth. So think about that. And, you know, I think Jay was talking about many decades, many years ago. This was this year, 2010. That happened right here in Haiti. I've been here a few times now since the earthquake, and I want to tell you, I don't know if you can see much. Neil, I don't know if you can show them a little bit here behind me. If any of you have been watching the coverage of Haiti, and Mark, again, if you're there, you'll recognize this very well, but this is the tent city that a lot of people refer to. It is nighttime here, obviously, but there are tents as far as the eye can see, and there are hundreds of thousands of people who remain displaced in the city tonight. They've remained displaced in the city for the last 10 months, and from everything that I've heard now, they'll be displaced for a very long time. Someone told me that it'll take about 4 years to get Haiti back to what it was one day before the earthquake. One day. I mean, there's rubble still in the streets, which may seem like a relatively trivial problem. You simply can't get around. You can't get from point A to point B. You can't get emergency resources, as was just discussed in the previous talk, from point A to point B. Imagine how difficult it is in a situation like this. I was here, at the 6-month mark. I refuse to call it an anniversary, but I was here at the 6-month mark of the earthquake. I'm here again now talking about what's happened with the cholera outbreak. There was an earthquake. There was concerns about infectious diseases for some time, and now there's this cholera outbreak. It is unclear, to be sure, whether this cholera outbreak had anything to do with the earthquake in the first place. Cholera could have been here for a long time. You haven't had an outbreak of cholera in Haiti for many, many decades, but the bacteria can live in the ground. It can be here, and it may, for some reason, have expressed itself again. But as in terms of how quickly it spread, how many deaths it has caused, and how many thousands of people are still sick, from everybody we talked to, that has everything to do with the earthquake. And that is what the people are dealing with right now. Thousands of people are dying. And the likelihood of these camps behind me, these big tent cities behind me being affected is pretty high. That's what we're hearing. And I think that's the biggest concern right now. There are things that are inexplicable that happen in a third world setting like this. Emergency, life-saving resources, simple ones. IV fluids and salt, things that can literally treat and completely fix someone's illness of cholera. If they get it, they're fine. If they don't get it, they have a high likelihood of dying. And those things are in country. I saw them with my own eyes, not too far from here. And yet, for a multitude of reasons, they didn't get to people who needed them fast enough. And that is heartbreaking because, as much as at a conference like yours, you have people talking about the most amazing technology, the way that we're going to change the world, and all of that is so important. I'm reminded when I'm in a place like this that we cannot forget the gimmies, if you will, the low-hanging fruit, the things that should be easy, the things that literally, for hardly any effort at all in the scheme of things, could save hundreds of lives. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen as much as it should here in Haiti. There's amazing, heroic medical workers, nurses doing incredible work, but this is the reality of what's happening here right now. I know you have a few questions. I mean, I feel like over the last 10 months, Haiti has completely consumed me to the point where I probably talk about it too much. My wife tells me that I do, and sometimes I'm forbidden of speaking about it when I get home. But it is something that I'm very passionate about. My heart is really here. And again, Mark and Richard, as much as I wish that I could be there with you, I think you'll understand why I'm here right now.
Well, we certainly understand, Sanjay. And can you tell us for a bit, for those that might not know, what is cholera about? How is it treated? And if it's, our understanding is that it's typically a relatively treatable disease, why are they having so much trouble and how is it being transmitted down there?
Cholera is a very treatable disease. It's a bacteria, and it's one of these things that's usually reflective of some sort of unsanitary living condition. So this is a bacteria that gets into your GI system. If it does, in a certain percentage of people, by no means all people, but in a certain percentage of people, it releases these toxins into your GI tract, and that's sort of the process by which you start to get very sick. These toxins just make you lose fluid like you've never lost fluid before. You can, in some estimates, lose up to a quart of fluid an hour. So it's just, think about that, you just become so profoundly dehydrated. Also, when you lose that much fluid that quickly, your electrolytes, your sodium, your potassium in your body, those start to become abnormal in value, and patients can have kidney problems, they can have cardiac arrest, and we're talking about young and old alike. So interestingly, about 75% of people roughly who get cholera into their bodies, they don't get sick at all. They have no illness. They're with asymptomatic, as it's called. The concern, though, about those people is that because they're asymptomatic, they travel around the country and they still carry the bacteria and still potentially spread the bacteria again through their GI tract, potentially contaminate water in a new location, and all of a sudden, a week or two after the initial outbreak, you start to have outbreaks in all these other locations, which can be traced probably to the traveling of these people who are carriers. Why isn't it better treated? It's easily treated, to your point. You got to hydrate somebody. You got to give them the fluids back. If they're not that sick, you can just literally have them drink fluids. If they're sick to the point where they can no longer keep anything down, they're throwing it all up, you put an IV in them, and you give them some of these electrolyte salts back, these rehydration salts back. That's basically it. Rehydration salts cost 50 cents. Clean water is what it is. But, in 2010, and Dean came in again, I don't know if you're there, but I remember your talk so well from last year, and we've talked a lot since then because you very much inspired me, but clean water. people are on their hands and knees for clean water. They're begging for it here in Haiti, and they're literally dying for lack of it. So as much as, I know Dean's got some incredible ideas about how to get clean water to all these different places. This is a place that could really use some of Mike his expertise. But that's really the issue here, is getting some of the basic life-saving supplies to people who need it the most.
Well, Dean is here, and he did talk a little bit about the water project today. Two quick questions. Is the outbreak there?
Did you guys drink each other's pee? Is that what I heard?
That was actually a prior event, and that was between Richard and Dean. I try to stay out of those things. But I have a question. We're wondering if it's concentrated, if the outbreak is concentrated in the Port-au-Prince area. And we also, you may have just heard Craig Fugate, the head of FEMA, speak. I understand you may have a question for him, or wondering how he, or I know that's not his territory, may offer any ideas, or this community may be helpful in any way.
Yeah. Well, first of all, with regard to the outbreak, the epicenter, if you will, the area of concentration was a bit north of Port-au-Prince, an area called St. Mark's. And again, it's unclear. A lot of people have been researching this, but it's unclear exactly how it originated. But that seems to be where it originated. And again, thousands, roughly around 4,600 people are ill. More than 300 people have died. The numbers in a situation like this, as a lot of people who work in the field of epidemiology may know, don't mean a lot, because it's really hard to figure out exactly how many people are sick. You're measuring the people who actually show up at a health facility, and that's certainly not everybody, especially not in a situation like this. And with regard to deaths, unless someone has actually been tested and confirmed to have had cholera, they're not always listed as to have died from cholera. So it's unclear exactly what those numbers mean. But this is the area, again, behind me, Mark, that is of most concern because of the density of the population, because of the way that people are living in these types of close quarters, unsanitary Port-au-Prince. And people coming down from St. Mark's, again, who could be feeling perfectly fine, having no illness that they can detect whatsoever, but carrying the bacteria within their body, excreting it somewhere around here, contaminating water supply, and then this can start to spread like wildfire. So and that's exactly what people are sort of concerned about right now. There are warehouses in this area that have a lot of life-saving supplies, and it was a big concern and puzzling to some extent why some of those supplies did not get to St. Mark's. I went into that warehouse, one of the largest warehouses in the area, and asked, these are basic life-saving things. Why didn't you just send it up to St. Mark's? And this is part of the complexities of aid distribution. They told me that they were really trying to keep as much of that here in Port-au-Prince as possible because of the concern of an outbreak happening here as well. And it's a bitter irony that people who need these life-saving supplies die for lack of them, even though they were right in front of them. But that's sometimes a consequence of a complex aid distribution mechanism. And I'm happy to ask a question as well, Mr. Fugate, if you're there. Is that okay?
He's walking on stage right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, I sort of had a couple of questions. One is that, when you think about Haiti, I just, there's a lot of natural disasters all over the world. I've covered a lot of them. I'm wondering if you have any idea from a U.S. perspective what the stance is toward Haiti. How much help is the U.S. Interested in giving Haiti? And not to sound in any way cynical, but why Haiti? Why Haiti versus Pakistan versus Sri Lanka versus a lot of other places around the world? And also, Mr. Fugate, given what I was just describing in terms of the complexities of aid distribution, getting these life-saving supplies to people who need it the most, and how it didn't happen as well as it should by everyone's admission here. If you were down here, is there anything that you would see differently or do differently?
All right. Well, the first one: why is the U.S. interested in Haiti? I think the president put it best when we were dealing the day after the earthquake, and we met with the president. We were discussing the U.S. response, and the president basically said this: how can we not come to an aid of a neighbor who lives next door to us, whose population and our population have a long history, who many of their citizens live in our country and are U.S. citizens? How can we not do everything possible? So you saw a rather different type of response to Haiti than you would most international disaster responses. You saw a lot of military, but what you probably don't know about was you also saw a lot of other federal agencies supporting USAID who traditionally did not respond far away, because just to the distance, we were closer than many of the other major donors. So we could get there quicker and get more stuff there. But I think the president said this best when, how can we not, given the proximity to Haiti and the overwhelming need, not provide that assistance? Now to the second part, the complexity of this response. Oftentimes, big bureaucracies look at the big solution. That oftentimes then puts the individual second place. And I think this is one of the things that I came back and I was talking about earlier. We need to change this and not look at these folks as victims, but look at them as survivors and really look at how Haitians can solve problems themselves. You know, as you point out, there's not a lot of infrastructure. There's no central water system. Most people get their water from water trucks. The sewer system's an open system. The best way to do this is to go attack the disease outbreak at the point of origin, not risk spreading or holding back, waiting for it. Sort of like an earlier presentation. Don't treat the symptoms, treat the cause. If cholera gets into the city, it will be hard to stop no matter how much you have to treat it. You would have been better off going fast to where it broke out, try to contain it, and stop it from spreading inland.
Yeah, that's well put, and I think that a lot of people are sort of recognizing that here now. And I, you know, again, it was a bit confusing because I think for 9 months or so, you have to give credit where credit is due. There wasn't the big infectious disease outbreaks that people sort of anticipated might happen here, and by even the WHO's estimation, this sort of blindsided them. They did not expect to see cholera here, but now they're certainly going to have to deal with it for some time to come, and we're going to certainly cover that and make sure people know what's happening here.
Well, Sanjay, thank you. We know you have to get ready for live TV soon. We really appreciate that you took some time to talk with us here live, and hope your efforts there continue to go well. We look forward to seeing you next year.
Is that Richard? Richard, is that you talking?
That was Mark. This is Richard.
Richard, I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday all the way from Port-au-Prince. I'm sure you haven't gotten a birthday wish from here yet, so let me be the first. And happy birthday. Really, I hope.
Thank you very much, Sanjay.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Talk to you soon.